Imagine being at the top of your game, the talk of the town, and considered by many as the greatest pitcher in the history of Major League Baseball. Now picture this, you're sabotaging your own career, all because of one thing, your attitude. We're talking about Roger Clemens, a pitcher who had everything going for him, the accolades, the accomplishments, the raw talent. Yet, he couldn't avoid the toxic behavior that would ultimately define his career in the most controversial way possible. This guy didn't just hurt his own legacy, he became a lightning rod for drama, controversy, and some of the biggest scandals Major League Baseball has ever seen. We're talking about a pitcher who didn't think twice about throwing at batters on purpose, got wrapped up in steroid accusations, and somehow found himself smack in the middle of one of the sport's most infamous controversies. Sure, he racked up jaw-dropping stats, 7 Cy Young Awards, an MVP, and a key role in 2 World Series wins. But all of that ended up taking a back seat to his off-the-rails behavior. So how exactly does someone go from being a fan favorite and one of the most dominant forces on the mound to one of the most polarizing figures in baseball history? To understand how this happened, we have to go back to the very beginning, the early days when his future seemed so bright that the word phenom was being used everywhere to describe him. In fact, during his college days at the University of Texas, that's exactly what he was called. Everywhere you looked, people were raving about him. He was the standout ace on the Texas Longhorns pitching staff, leading them to a national title in 1983. It was no surprise when his name quickly appeared at the top of many MLB draft boards, and the Boston Red Sox picked him up in the first round of the 1983 draft, selecting him 19th overall. The Red Sox gave him a $120,000 signing bonus, huge money, especially for someone who grew up watching his mom work 3 jobs just to keep the lights on. He made her a promise she'd never have to go through that again. That promise lit a fire under him. He tore through the Red Sox's minor league system, and just a year after being drafted, he was on a major league mound making his debut. Right out of the gate in his rookie season, he made waves. He started 20 games, threw some gems, and even picked up his first complete game in an 8-1 win over the Blue Jays. But just as things were heating up, he hit a major roadblock, a serious shoulder injury. A torn labrum had doctors unsure if he'd ever be the same. Luckily, he had surgery from the legendary doctor, James Andrews, and, against the odds, came back just as dominant, maybe even better. After his surgery, things looked a little shaky. Spring training wasn't kind to Clemens. He got lit up, and people started seriously questioning if he could ever get back to form. But once the regular season started, he came out firing. His first start against the White Sox was electric, just 1 out shy of a complete game. It was the perfect way to announce his comeback. And then, just a few starts later, he made history. Against the Seattle Mariners in April 1986, Clemens struck out 20 batters in a single game, a major league record. That performance didn't just silence the doubters, it cemented his place among baseball's elite. Even with all the awards and record-breaking moments, something just felt off. It wasn't only Clemens' insane talent that people talked about. It was also his attitude. Sure, he was dominant on the mound, but he was also fiery, unpredictable, and not exactly easygoing. Early on, he insisted he'd stay grounded, that the fame and attention wouldn't change him. But over time, the pressure started to chip away at that calm front. His competitive fire slowly turned into something darker. What used to be passion started looking more like rage. He didn't just pitch with intensity, he pitched like he had something to prove every time, and if things didn't go his way, he wasn't afraid to let people know. That edge, that chip on his shoulder, it became a little too sharp. Fans started noticing. The Golden Boy was starting to look more like a ticking time bomb. In the 1986 postseason, Clemens helped carry the Red Sox all the way to the World Series. But it didn't go the way anyone hoped. His first playoff start was rough, giving up 7 runs, but he redeemed himself in Game 7 with a clutch performance that sent Boston to the big stage. Unfortunately, the dream ended there. Despite Clemens doing his part, the Red Sox lost to the Mets in heartbreaking fashion, with one of the most infamous collapses in baseball history. After that season, Clemens remained dominant in the years that followed, but his attitude began to wear on both teammates and fans. His performances on the mound were extraordinary, but his behavior off the mound was becoming an issue. The pressure continued to mount, and when he was criticized for his behavior during a playoff game in 1990, it was clear that something had changed. Instead of taking responsibility for his actions, Clemens lashed out, which alienated some of his fans and teammates. His combative nature was no longer just an on-field characteristic. It was spilling over into the locker room and media interviews. The once admired competitor now seemed unapproachable, turning what should have been celebrated moments into controversies. With each passing year, Clemens's reputation became more about his temper than his talent, and fans began to question if the personal battles were overshadowing his career achievements. By the time his deal with the Red Sox was up in 1996, Roger Clemens' career felt like it was hanging in the balance. He still had the resume of a legend, but his attitude and growing list of controversies had started to cast a shadow over it all. Then came the twist. Instead of fading out, he signed a massive 3-year, $25 million deal with the Toronto Blue Jays. And just like that, he flipped the narrative. In his very first season, Clemens was on fire, leading the league in wins, strikeouts, and ERA. A triple crown. The Rocket was back, and Toronto was hoping he'd launch them straight to another World Series run. But even as Clemens was dominating again, rumors started swirling. Whispers that he might be using steroids to keep up his performance. He denied everything, standing firm that he'd never touched the stuff. Still, the chatter didn't go away. In fact, it only got louder. Eventually, his name showed up in the infamous Mitchell Report, MLB's bombshell investigation into steroid use, with claims that he had been using during his time with the Blue Jays. Suddenly, his comeback didn't seem so clean after all. Even with the steroid rumors swirling, Clemens kept doing what he did best, dominating. He racked up more Cy Young awards and even helped lead the Yankees to another World Series title. On the surface, everything looked like a fairy tale, but behind the scenes, his image was cracking. In 2008, he was accused of lying to Congress about steroid use. And while he was eventually acquitted in 2012, the damage was already done. His name had become a magnet for controversy, and fans didn't know what to believe anymore. No matter how good his numbers were, there was always that cloud hanging over him. Every game, every stat came with an asterisk in people's minds. Clemens could deny it all he wanted, but the trust was gone. And once that's broken, it's nearly impossible to get back. By the time Clemens retired in 2007, his Hall of Fame candidacy was in jeopardy. Despite having some of the most impressive career statistics in baseball history, including over 4,600 strikeouts and 7 Cy Young awards, his legacy was clouded by the steroid allegations and his controversial attitude. His name was mentioned 82 times in the Mitchell Report, and even though he continued to deny any wrongdoing, the trust of the public had eroded. Roger Clemens had everything: the arm, the records, the rings. But instead of coasting into legend status, he let controversy write the final chapters of his story. Steroid allegations, a fiery temper, and an ego that often got in the way turned what could have been a clean, heroic legacy into one clouded by doubt. Could he have gone down as the undisputed greatest without the drama? Probably. But instead of just battling batters, Clemens ended up battling his own reputation. The stats? Untouchable. The talent? Legendary. But the legacy? Complicated. In the end, Roger Clemens didn't just throw heat, he scorched bridges. And maybe, just maybe, that's what kept him from claiming the baseball immortality that once seemed inevitable. His story is more than just strikeouts and Cy Youngs. It's a rise, a fall, and a legacy clouded by controversy. A legend built on pure talent and undone by ego, attitude, and scandal. For every athlete chasing greatness, Clemens is the ultimate reminder. Skill might take you to the top, but character decides if you stay there. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this deep dive into one of the most controversial careers in MLB history, consider subscribing to the channel. Also, if you're curious about another player who openly discussed his use of performance-enhancing drugs and became one of the most powerful hitters of his generation, check out the video on your screen now. Don't forget to drop a comment below with your thoughts on Roger Clemens' career. Did his behavior overshadow his incredible talent, or do you think he should be remembered as one of the best pitchers ever?